Great morning, humans. Great morning, world. This is your boy, Dr. JC Doornick, and welcome to another edition of Make Sense Mondays, sponsored by the Make Sense podcast. So letting some people file in right now. We're streaming live to a bunch of different areas, which is just an interesting thing that we have the ability to do as humans right now. I'm coming to you from where I am and streaming live to multiple platforms. So I want to welcome everybody to this amazing Monday. I was sharing in our community this morning that I know it's going to be a great day because I woke up and I was breathing. I had eyesight. My wits were about me still. My heart was beating. My five senses were working, which is an indication that most likely, like you, if you're here with me right now, you've been blessed with another 24. So our potential is massive. So congratulations on making it to another day, another blessing of a day. So great morning, Kathy. Great morning, Susan. Great morning, Rhoda. Just a little side note before we get into today's topic. I've been doing this for well over 15 years, just having a morning structure, the idea of winning the morning to win the day. And it's just been such an amazing blessing that has most likely saved my life. So if you're somebody that has a morning structure that you live by to the point where it's no longer a luxury, but it's a necessity. It's something that you actually find yourself getting worried about if someone ruins it. You're with me. So, I just think that there's nothing more important or more valuable that we can do is and claim control of our thoughts and our feelings, thus our actions in the morning, in recognition that our brain, just like a computer, boots up in the morning. And what does a brain or a computer boot up with? Whatever it is, what you were doing last with it. So in your case, yesterday, which very well may not apply to today. So welcome to this great Monday morning and another Make Sense Monday. A couple quick things going on. Our podcast is doing great. We're now seeing our podcast episodes are getting over 1,000 downloads each. So thanks to everybody that's following the Make Sense with Dr. JC Doornick podcast. As you know, that's a cost-free podcast, just as this is. So that's just awesome. We're seeing that is going to be a big thing, and the stuff that we're talking about in there and all the interviews that are about to come up starting next week are just mind-blowing. And once again, accenting this idea of getting your brain to become aware of things, right? To become aware of things that sometimes we miss, like this topic today, so that we can start to claim control or claim more control, right? So thanks so much for following the podcast. There's so many other assets that we have. We have our free community, we have our newsletter and things like that. So just reach out if you want to find out about anything, Rise Up with Dragon or Make Sense podcast. Couple of interviews coming up that you can be excited about. We've got topics and experts in the field on artificial intelligence. All of our podcast interviews are making sense of something. So our listeners, and those are going to be YouTube videos as well. So our listeners are going to be able to, by the way, that smoke coming through is incense. I'm not getting high right now, although a lot of people won't believe me when I say that. So a lot of the interviews are always based on taking a topic, a very relevant topic, and making sense of it. Once again, your brain is a sense-making machine. That's what you're trying to do all day. But we know that 95% of that day is going to be devoted to you trusting, handing the keys over to your unconscious, subconscious mind, and your program mind to just run the show. We talk a lot about that. So what we're trying to do here is give you a little bit more access and awareness to that stuff, so that you can learn how to pause and start to dispute some of the things that you think. And today's topic is a perfect example of that. And start moving forward as the shot caller, the dominant force and creator of your life. So these people that I'm interviewing, they're used to just talking about their stuff, but we're diving deeper and we're asking them questions about, well, where did you come up with that idea? How did that start? Why are you doing that? What do you think causes you to do that? And how are people affected by that? So the topics are artificial intelligence, PTSD. We're interviewing just amazing people. We interviewed the woman that was the lawyer for John Wayne Gacy. So we're going to make sense of defending a serial killer, interviewing some people on the value of mortality and things like that. So you're just going to love the stuff that's coming your way. Very, very cool. That smoke wafting through the screen came through just after you said AI. Yeah. I mean, like, who knows? Who knows if this is even real, right? I mean, the smartest people in the world would contend that everything is just a video game and a simulation. Here I am talking to you on a video screen. Either way you look at it, you're the shot caller. You get to decide what you make of things. So let me begin today. We're going to make sense of something called collective illusions. And this is a very, very important topic to me because I'm the person, as a father, as a husband, as a friend, but also as a coach. A lot of people come to me and make statements, typically focused on how they feel, or I had somebody this morning share with me that they're having a really rough time, or sometimes people will say, "Hey, everything's great. I'm having a great time." But it's interesting whenever somebody gives me some sort of a statement about what they think and how they feel. What I love to share with them in that conversation is that's just what you think and you feel. And what you think and you feel is based on your perception of what's going on and your ability to ignore what else is going on. But we also know that human beings have this amazing capacity to make shit up, right? To look at something that two people could look at one thing and come up with a different impression of it. I'm having a bad day. Same day, somebody says they're having a good day. So we're going to talk a little bit about that stuff. Great morning, Lori. Great morning, Colleen. Great morning, Kush. Can I call you Kush now? Chris Cushing? It just came out. I like that. Great morning, everybody. So this is very, very important to me for my own, brain capacity, because, we're constantly being exposed to all this stuff that we consume unconsciously, right? And it's programming our brain, but also I'm a father. And I observe some really, really interesting stuff going on with our kids that are the next generation. And we've kind of passed some things on to them. So this is going to be a full-on podcast episode. Today on Make Sense Mondays, it's just raw. It's just as I feel, as it comes through me. I take the topic and I just talk about what I think is relevant and meaningful to it. So this podcast episode will probably come out in like 5-6 weeks, and it'll be on collective illusions. But let's talk about this. Let me get this started. We'll be together for another 20 minutes or so. And once again, just as a reminder, the reason why you might be here right now, or you might want to share this with somebody else, is because here we're going to have a conversation about something that could be highly useful for you to not only break through, but also reclaim control of a little bit more of that unconscious program that you are always running that doesn't necessarily get you where you want to go, right? So this is about leveraging your odds today of taking advantage of those 24 hours that you were blessed with this morning. So we're going to make sense of this interesting theory that I heard about first through this amazing psychologist. His name is Todd Rose, and it's called Collective Illusions. So I'm just going to give you the preface of it, and then I'll just speak on it. So a collective illusion is something that's going on right now. And it's going on amongst you right now. It's having a massive impact on you, but most likely you're unaware of it, but you will be now. So these are instances, collective illusions, where we see the majority of a population, so you can see this everywhere, assuming something to be true, or maybe believing in something, and then therefore going along with it. You could call that herd mentality or whatever. But you see majority of people believing in something, having a preference for something, and then going along with it naturally, when we find out later that it wasn't in fact true. It was just an illusion that persuaded them to feel like it was true. If enough people were to start saying something, there's just this part of your human brain, especially if they're people that you resonate with, that would assume that, you know, it's just true, right? And just think about how this might affect our kids, you know. Great morning to everybody. So why am I interested in this? You know, well, first of all, as a sense maker, right? I'm fascinated. You know, and people always ask me what I do, and I say I help people change the way that they look at things, so that the things that they look at change. So I like to make sense of things and deliver it to you and give you guys some ideas that could make you go, interesting, and possibly be the dance floor or the stage for you to dispute some things that you believe, especially the ones that are not helping you, right? A lot of people say, I believe in this. And sometimes I'll just say, well, how's that working out for you, right? We actually get to call the shots. So as a sense maker and an individual that helps people do that, I'm fascinated with the idea of making sense of how we live in a society that is programming and wiring. It's happening right now. You're listening to me talk right now. So disclaimer, don't take anything that I say as fact. Dispute it. Look it up, right? Make your own decisions, and also determine if a conversation like the one we're having this morning is useful and in support of your ultimate goals and dreams. Because if it's not, stop. Right? You know, that's the idea of sorting and filtering and minimizing things that just don't matter. That's why I wear these shirts. Words cannot describe how much I don't care. I care, but I just don't care about shit that doesn't matter, right? So we live in this society that's programming and wiring our brains to believe, perceive, and achieve things that end up holding us back from living that best life. Make sense? So that's why I'm fascinated with this. And, you know, I contend that that would be the reason why you'd be fascinated with learning about something that's happening on a constant basis to you, that is causing you to believe in things when it's in fact not true, but more importantly, not helping you move forward. Now, there's an interesting disclaimer there. If you have beliefs in things that are not necessarily true or can't be proven, and you know how many things there are like that, but it's actually helping you move forward, you can actually look at your goals and dreams and you're moving forward, regardless if it's true or not. If it's working for you, go with it, because it's very debatable. We don't really have the ability to identify the truth. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about you becoming aware of how you're persuaded to think things and make assumptions that they're true, and it having an impact on you. But if it's having a positive impact on you and it's complete nonsense, I say go with it, right? I say go with it. Have a ball. So here's where this thing got triggered for me, and parents will understand this. So I was at the tail end of this morning routine, which is where I'm at with you right now. But right before this, my daughter gets up before I do these lives where I speak to our Make Sense Academy community. And I just watched her come down, and she does this every day, but I just took awareness of it today because my brain was just firing off. That's what my morning routine does. And I observed my daughter do what she always does. She came downstairs as usual. And for me, that's a trigger, and that's an indication that it's time to close up shop. That's one of the things that I very, very much have committed to, and is in alignment with me living my best life, is the idea of paying attention to my children no matter what. My children know my schedule. I have work hours and stuff. But when my daughter comes down, I shut my laptop and I look at her and I ask her how was her sleep, and we talk. But I was watching her and noticed that she instinctively picked up. She's half awake, right? Her brain is not even fully booted up yet. You know, I'm letting her ease into living my lifestyle as she's ready. But she picked up her phone and she just instinctively, I don't even think she was aware of it, began scrolling. So the idea of collective illusion that I had learned from this guy, Todd Rose, the other day, and being programmed by what we consume really hit me in that moment, because now I'm watching my daughter unconsciously subjected to it. So in that moment, I thought of her, I thought of myself, and I thought of all of you. And I thought of this idea that it's one thing to have a collective illusion, like the economy's a mess or something like that. But it's another to also become aware of the fact that what it is that we consume every day, more than ever with social media and news and also chit chat and gossip, you'll notice that if you just allow yourself to consume that, like a buffet, right? You just pull up to the buffet and you consume it. You'll notice that the information that you're consuming on the regular, and this includes our educational institutions as well as, the workplace and everything like that, you'll notice that what it is that you're consuming is in support of these illusions, right? So it's one thing to find out that you think a bunch of people think something, right? But the problem is that they don't actually think that. You think that a bunch of people think something, right? So that's what a collective illusion is this idea that a collective group of people think something, so you assume that it is something, and to fit into life, natural selection, you go along with it. But what's interesting is if you go ask those other people what they think, right? They'll give you the same answer. In private, they'll tell you what they really think. But if you ask them in public, right, when they're subjected to the pressures of public or they're trying to fit in, they'll give the same answer. So that's what a collective illusion is this herd mentality idea that we move along with ideas that we think are true, right? Based on the assumption that everybody thinks that. But what you don't know is everybody is thinking the same way. That's what a collective illusion is. Look it up. It's fascinating. So I'm super fascinated with this topic because it plays a big, big role. One of the things, like I said, I hope I made it clear. If somebody's talking complete nonsense about something that's not factual, I have this innate ability to recognize that nobody knows the truth. I'm fine with anybody saying anything, right? As long as it's not hurting us and a threat. I just like to observe and not participate in crazy things. But I'm just fascinated with the fact that human beings are very, very often oscillating, saying things like, I just got to get out of my own way. And trying to, as a health transformation coach, people are trying to lose weight and change their healthy habits and stuff and oscillating, right? Trying to get into town in a rocking chair, yo-yoing and all of that stuff. So I'm fascinated by that and anything that impacts that. And one of the things that I see impacts that is people's perceptions of themselves and reality, because that's where they make all of their excuses for themselves, So this oscillation back and forth in people's lives and its connection with the illusion of what they think of themselves and society is fascinating. So it's brought me to a place where I observe the downstream side effects of mindless consumption. That's what I saw my daughter doing. And that's what you'll maybe be a little bit more conscious today of what you consume. One of the things that I always share in my podcast and in my book is remember that whatever it is that we consume with regularity ends up being what we assume with regularity, right? So if we're consuming social media and news and all of that stuff, you think that you have the ability to differentiate something that's fantasy and not. But what you don't understand is the brain, Hebb's theory, is neurons that fire together, wire together. If you start consuming something with enough regularity, what'll happen is, it's interesting. This is another thought for the day. There's something in your brain called the reality threshold. Fascinating. Look that up. The reality threshold of the brain. And what it means is if I look outside my window right now, I can imagine that I see a unicorn going down the street, right? Now, The only reason I know that it's just imagination is because logically I know that unicorns don't exist, right? But that's because that imagination did not bypass this reality threshold. But the way that you bypass the reality threshold is you get enough proof that something is real. And that's what's happening in society and by consistently consuming on social media. And all something needs to do is bypass that reality threshold. And that's this idea that humans are getting to the point where they don't always have the ability to differentiate something from fantasy or not real to being real. It's this reality threshold. So that's, I'm just sharing with you, control your consumption. It's not just about what you eat and your weight and all of that stuff. It's also what you're learning, the people that you're hanging out with, you know, what you're consuming on a regular basis. This is fascinating. Collective illusion seems different from collective bias. Bias could be from an illusion. Well, I mean, that's a great point, Lori. So cognitive bias is something that humans initiate to protect something that they believe to be true, right? So if I believe something, like let's say, I'm not going to choose a political preference, but let's say I choose one of those sides, or actually there's even more sides right now, or potentially a sexual pronoun or something, all these hot topics right now. But let's say I'm locked in and I believe that to be true. That could be caused by a collective illusion, right? That's the first step, is to identify how the idea and the belief is created by the collective illusion, but also the consumption. But then the next step is I will protect my position by creating a cognitive bias. And a cognitive bias is where I will look to validate what it is that I believe by finding others and anything that proves it to be true, but also proceed to discredit anything and anyone that goes against it, right? So once you're indoctrinated into something that was caused by a collective illusion that creates a belief system, yeah, you're gonna look to protect it. So this brings up an interesting topic that I guess I would include in this and maybe give you the ability to think about today. And this could really, really help you because it's the idea of identifying the illusion, which is a collective illusion, of what it means to have a successful life. So think about that for a second, right? Here's what's interesting if you delve into the research that people are doing to show the difference between what you would say, what people in population would say if they were asked privately what they really thought, versus if you asked them in public or ask them what they thought about the public, right? So if I asked you, and you could, you know, maybe put some stuff in the chat if you're playing along with me, but if I asked you right now, what does it mean to live a successful life in your observation of the public? You would most likely start saying things like, you know, fame, accolades, social status, how many followers you have, and all that stuff. And the reason why you'd say that is that's what you observe, right? But I've asked you, but what do you think? What does it mean to you to be successful? You would probably revert to things that matter most. And you'd say something like spending quality time with my family, or my health, making my time count, you know, philanthropy, and all of these things that really, really matter. Here's what's interesting about the collective illusion concept. And that's why this is what I want you to be aware of as we kind of come to the end of this. In the topic of success, right? When you make a public observation of what it is that people would deem a successful life, the car, the fame, and all of that stuff, the only reason you're saying that is because of what you're consuming, right? Think about it. If you weren't consuming anything, you wouldn't be able to make that observation. So you're unaware of that, but you make this assumption that most people are like that, right? But what you don't know is that when we ask most people, they will say the same thing, and they will include you into the public observation of what they think, right? And they will make a statement like you did when asked in a private sector. Here's why this is important. You know, this guy Todd Rose says that the collective the collective perception and, and illusion of one generation ends up being being paid forward and being the collective opinion of the next. Okay, so grab onto that for a second. What that's saying is that our forefathers, whatever collective illusion happened with them and whatever opinions they formed and beliefs, they pass them on to us. And it's even more powerful when it's passed on because it becomes more of us thinking and believing and having opinions. All right. Here's where it gets challenging. If you look at what's out there and what we're consuming, social media, the highlight reel, news, can you see the collective illusion that the only news that's worthy is bad news? Right? Can you see the collective illusion of the definition of success coming through social media and the highlight reel? I mean, most people, including those of you that don't even care about this stuff, post your highlight reel, right? You post your highlight reel. My daughter, here's another example of it. When my daughter goes out, right? When she's home, she's comfortable, she's just chilling. But when she goes out, she thinks about what she's going to want to wear and she thinks about her makeup and all of that stuff. Just think about why she's doing that. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but there's a collective illusion that causes her to say, I can't go out there like this, right? She won't even go to the grocery store without primping herself up. How is that happening, right? So I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing, but I just want to make you aware of the fact that a lot of the things that you believe have come from an inaccurate perception of the way everybody else is, right? You'll find that most people are like you and not different from you. It's just a matter of what level of consciousness they have of this stuff that we're talking about. That's why I love these conversations that we're having. That's why my wife created the Make Sense Academy. That's why we have this group of conscious people that are open and curious and willing to dispute anything to just find out what suits them better, right? I love these conversations because otherwise, if we don't have conversations like this stuff is going on and we're waking up in the morning, getting ourselves ready, thinking that we're consciously deciding to go about the day, but handing the keys of trust over to our subconscious minds that have been programmed, right? And we're just going with the flow. We're just going with the flow. And you know what happens when you jump into, riptides, right? It'll take you away to this other place. And it won't be until you look down and see your clothes like a mile down the beach, right? That you know that it even happened. So this is a conversation that is just about helping you guys say, that's an interesting idea. Something maybe worth taking a look at. So what are some of the collective illusions that, one of the things that I was going to put up. Where is it? Right here. This is a great question. This is the question of the day. Are you aware of any perceptions that you might have of your life that might not necessarily be true? Just take a poke at that, right? I had a guy call me this morning or speak to me this morning. He might be listening. And he was just talking about how he's having such a rough life, right? And what I was thinking about is, another person would look at his same circumstance and just recognize that he's a work in progress, right? So what would make somebody determine that they're having a bad day? It would be a collective illusion of what a bad day means. But then you read a book that says a bad day, it means that you're on your way, right? And all of a sudden you change your perception. So everything's a matter of perception, agreed? Right? So that's what I wanted to do today. Wanted to just give you guys the ability to, just become aware of something. In the game of trying to change the way that you look at things, obviously this podcast episode will go way in depth with this, and that's the Make Sense with Dr. JC Doornick podcast. You can find all of that stuff, Rise Up with Dragon. And also, if you want to check out our Make Sense Academy, just type Make Sense into the chat or DM me or something like that, or my wife. But this stuff is super, super relevant because the idea of getting to this place where you change the way you look at things, you have to be open to growth first. The first step is that you have to be open to change, right? You have to get to this point in your life where you say, I want more. I'm unsatisfied with satisfactory. I want more. If you're in that place right now, that's a really, really good spot to be in. But the next step before you go into action is you have to become consciously aware of some of these forces at work that are causing you to oscillate, to start and stop, start and stop. That's what the Make Sense podcast is all about. That's what my book is going to be about. That's what this conversation is about, is just helping you become aware of some things. And like I said before, I'm asking you to become indoctrinated or tethered to my ideas. But if something strikes your interest, like I do, go look it up and see, like, take your analytical mind and see if it's more fascinating and more factual to you. And if it resonates with you, that's when you would go to apply it. So step one is you got to want more. You got to be seeking happier, healthier, wealthier, the seekers of the That's the first step. The second, before you go into action, is you have to understand the way your brain works and the way society is very, very much making it difficult for us to move forward. Because once you're aware of that stuff, you can begin to start disputing things, right? So when somebody comes up to me and makes a claim that they're having a good day or a bad day, or somebody says something, not nice to me, or there's some sort of a conflict or a link in the chain or a snag in the day, the first thing that I've learned to do is just pause and say, interesting. Right? Rather than let my knee-jerk reflex just do what it does, because that's where I get into trouble. So if you're interested in living that kind of a life where you start to dispute this automatic system that's been running, come check out our community, or just come to the no cost Make Sense Mondays and listen to my podcast. But in our community, we're working on this stuff every day. And what we're seeing is once people become a little bit more conscious and aware of all these things and have the ability to dispute things, right, that you're thinking and feeling, we're seeing a lot less distraction, more follow through, and a lot less distraction. And distractions could just be you having a bad day today because somebody said something mean to you, right? So that's our Make Sense Monday. I'm going to go back and read the rest of your comments. Love human behavior. If somebody, on my Instagram account, very often people challenge me and tell me things are not true or whatever. And I just respond by saying, And I say, I would love to hear more about that, because one of the things that I've come to realize, and this is part of what I'm saying, is I'm affected by the collective illusion as well, right? So I challenge everything, including what I think and what I find myself thinking is right. So come check out our community. Otherwise, I'll see you on a podcast episode. One launched today, the fourth step of the interface response system, and I'll be back next Monday. Love and appreciate you. Have an amazing day.